They're a couple $100.
These are cheaper, yeah.
Yeah, they're
50.
Can I have your attention? We are going to start the presentation. First, he's going to talk about a 1970.
And RCA got his patent in 1928 or 29.
Yeah, I'm going to see if I can fall off the stage and make this microphone work. So, hey, there it goes. A little progress. It's way too much technology. I'm Chuck Conrad. I'm the executive director and one of the founders of the Texas Broadcast Museum. I'm also on the ETF board. I want to assure everyone that this is not a contest between museums or anything like that. We're all in the same boat, and we all need to get together and work with each other. And I'm going to get off the stage because I really don't like it up here. I'd much rather have a conversation with you rather than a lecture. But this is kind of a cautionary tale, if you know what that means. Be careful what you ask for, because you may get it. Somebody came up to me, well, actually, we're going to talk about ESPN. Everybody watch ESPN? No, nobody in here. This crowd does not like ESPN. I'm there. But I've been going to the NAB convention, that's National Association of Broadcasters Convention, for the last several years. And my friends at the Museum of Broadcast Technology, which is in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, and you need to go see that, they've been sharing a booth with me. And this is, it's good news. Got to meet a lot of interesting people. Also got to get a lot of equipment that just dumped on us. And one day, we're sitting here in this booth. This is the booth. These two cameras now are at the Texas Broadcast Museum, but they were gifted to us by the Broadcast Technology Museum. And we're just sitting here, and that's Paul Beck in the background, my good friend. And this guy that you see in this next picture, Larry Silva, comes wandering out and says, "Hey, any of you guys want one of ESPN's first TV mobile units?" And they looked at each other and said, "We don't have any place to put it. I mean, this is gargantuan. Maybe Chuck does." So this guy, I ended up talking to Larry for about a year and a half, trying to come up with some kind of deal to get this thing. It's for you. Well, at least it's not for me. But anyway, this is Larry, and he was kind of a hard guy to argue with, and he was very insistent that we get this thing. Now, it's in Cranston, Rhode Island. That's essentially Providence, Rhode Island. And we're in Kilgore, Texas. That's a big problem. But I thought, ESPN, boy, a lot of people heard about this. This ought to be something that would be pretty cool. People would actually come because there's sports fans out there and they watch TV and they might be interested in it. In fact, that's actually turned out to be the case. But ESPN's kind of a funny company. They almost didn't make it. If it hadn't been for Budweiser beer, and a $1 million contract, I don't think they would have ever got on the air. And of course, now they're huge. But in their early days, they were sucking wind. In fact, they had trouble getting sports teams to even allow them to broadcast this stuff. I mean, after all, why, if you were on KPIX or whatever, some big name TV station and had a contract with them, why would you go to ESP? Who? Who are you? So anyway, ESPN started out, they built 3 of these TV mobile units. The one in the background might be the one that we have, 327. They called them 127, 227, and 327. That's because the box part is 27 feet long, and this way it would sound like we had a lot of TV mobile units. But we had 3, and they eventually added 2 of these 45-foot ones that you see in the foreground. They found out that 8 or 9 people crammed inside this 27-foot box was not exactly comfortable, and it had 4 cameras when it started out. I'm not sure how many cameras they use today, but I think the Super Bowl this last year had 128 or something like that, so it has changed a lot. I do know they eventually put 2 more cameras on board, and it had 6 cameras. Wow, we're really styling with that. But here is the truck. This is outside of Carnegie Hall in New York City. And I'm thinking, well, this could be pretty cool. I mean, it doesn't look that horrid in this picture. I was wrong. But at any rate, it has a lot of history to it. And so I reluctantly said, okay, we'll take it, but how are we going to get it to Kilgore, Texas? I'm not sure why it looks like it's leaning to the right-hand side, because maybe Larry was sitting in the passenger seat. I don't know. But they took this all kinds of weird places. They shipped it to Jamaica twice for World Cup tennis. One time they destroyed the cab on the thing, on the ship, so it got a new cab over the engine. God knows how many miles this thing has on it, but the speedometer, odometer has gone around several times, and it's on its 6th or 7th engine. But they took it everywhere. I mean, this is somewhere out in the West, somewhere obviously, looking like it is supposed to. And here's what it actually looked like. Now, it was pretty forlorn. It had been parked there since about 2010. I think we got it in 2017 or something like that, 18. It doesn't look too bad from this side, but there's something, it's in New England, and there's something called rust, and rust never sleeps, and it sure didn't on this thing. And it was actually, let's say, forlorn. Here's another picture of it. Just parked. It had been parked there for years. Apparently, when they decided they had the company that we got it from, that Larry ran, was a small production company in Rhode Island, and they did local stuff. And when they had to go HD, there wasn't much point in putting brand new HD equipment in a 1978 truck, especially one that doesn't run very well. So they just parked it, and eventually their landlord said, "You've got to get it out of here. It's been parked, it's an abandoned vehicle, I'm going to have it towed away if you don't get it out of here." That's where I guess I came in. You can see by the weeds growing up, this is kind of what the interior looked like. It was lovely. That giant thing in the middle there is a transformer, which is kind of interesting. I hadn't really thought about it too much. I'd worked with some video trucks before, but this one makes its own power. It could take almost any voltage in and give you 2 legs of 120 volts out at 100 amps a leg or something in that vicinity. So that's kind of neat. That it generated its own neutral, so you didn't have ground loops and problems like that. So that's very ingenious. This thing was made in Burbank, California by Compact Video. They made a lot of trucks back in the day, and it actually was pretty well designed and pretty well thought out. But here's the big problem. Cranston, Rhode Island, and Kilgore, Texas are kind of far away, 1,441 miles to be exact, at least according to Google. And how are we going to get it there? Because I had a Class A CDL at one time, and I had just turned it in because I was tired of getting traffic tickets that assumed I was driving an 18-wheeler when I was driving a family car. That's how that works. So I decided when I renewed my driver's license, I would drop the Class A CDL, which you need to drive this thing, at least technically. But it turned out I should have gone up there, just flown up on Southwest Airlines, got off, driven the truck back, and the tickets would have been a lot cheaper than what happened. But here's our choices. My first thought was railroad. We've got freight lines come into Kilgore, Texas, about 4 blocks away from the museum. In fact, there's a station there. So I thought, well, this would be pretty good. Turns out you have to negotiate with each railroad that it might go on. It would have to go from Cranston, Rhode Island to like Burlington, Vermont, and then Burlington, Vermont, it had to go to Schenectady. It was crazy. You had to negotiate with each railroad for your fare to get the thing there, and that just wasn't going to happen. So one of the other problems is that it happens to be 13 feet, 6 inches tall. So you put that on a truck, and any trailer is going to be at least 2 feet, so you're about 15 feet, 6 inches, maybe 16 feet, maybe even more. And you're not going to go under a lot of bridges and things. There's going to be a real problem doing this. So that didn't sound like a real great idea. And the other idea was drive it. Well, I'm thrifty, to say the least. And I thought, well, we'll get somebody to drive it. And I contacted some trucking companies. And I found one that said they could provide a driver, and they could provide fuel and permits and all that kind of stuff. And it was a fairly reasonable price, wasn't too bad, and get it to us. Well, it doesn't run, is one of the problems. So first thing we did was we hired this guy to fix it. And this was just like restoring a TV set. The random number generator turned on. And we had to put a new radiator in it. We had to take the fuel tanks out and have them boiled out and all the holes patched up because they were leaking and it was full of glue and glop from years of neglect. There were several other things that were wrong. And oh, by the way, it has the 1978 tires on it. Well, we don't know what year tires they are, but they're not spring chickens. So we thought, well, we'll get this thing running and we'll do it in the fall. Seemed like a good idea. In the summertime, you see all these big tractor treads sitting out in the middle of the freeway that you have to dodge around because the tire came apart in the heat. So we thought, well, if we move this thing, like in October, November, something like that, it won't be so hot. So maybe we'd only have 1 or 2 flat tires. Wishful thinking. Anyway, we did get the thing running, and this guy actually had been the mechanic that had worked on it before, and it cost us a small fortune. We didn't know it was going to cost a small fortune. And we hired this driver from this trucking company I was telling you about, and this is him, and he was a complete idiot. He had never driven a truck with a 4-speed manual transmission before. Aren't they all automatics? Well, no, they're not, actually. And in fact, well, he got in it and started to drive from Cranston, Rhode Island. He wanted to do this in the dark of night. That was part of the plan, too, was to maybe not attract quite so much attention, and also it would be cooler. Okay, see, all the lights are working and everything, though, so we got a DOT inspection. It was really pretty cool. Everything's working fine. See that little red knob next to the gear shift lever? That is a 2-speed rear axle switch. And not only had he never driven a 4-speed manual transmission with no synchronizers before, but he also had never driven one, never even heard of a 2-speed rear axle. So the guy gets outside of New York City on Interstate 95, and he rips the clutch out of it. Great. This is really swell. And he abandons it. He just leaves it on the side of the road and is never seen again. Perfect. How much better does it get? Well, this is part of the answer, is how good it gets. You get a big, actually the Connecticut State Police impounded it. A lot of fun. So we had to pay to get it out of impound, pay the fine, and have it towed to a truck repair place. And now we're right outside of New York City. Now, I don't mean to offend anybody from New York City, but generally speaking, if you want to get screwed financially, that's your place. Well, I mean, everybody's got their hand out. I mean, I get it, I do, but I just figured, oh God, this is going to be awful. Well, it turned out that it went to this truck repair place right in Connecticut, but real near the New York border, and they were actually really nice people. These guys were great. And they said, well, your clutch is bad. He said, we could probably adjust it enough and cheat on it to get you to New Jersey. But I want to point out that New Jersey is just right over there. So, he said, you're just going to need a new clutch. And by the way, we checked at the Napa Auto Parts store and Chief Auto Parts and stuff. They don't have one. No kidding. This is 1978 Ford truck with a Caterpillar engine in the thing. So we found one. Now this is about Halloween or so, I guess. We found one in El Paso, Texas, which is about as far away from Kilgore, Texas as New York City. But anyway, we found one, and I thought, well, I grew up in New England, even though I live in Texas. I grew up in New England, and I remember it used to start snowing. And snowing is not a really good idea with this thing. So I paid stupid money to have it FedExed into this truck repair place. Well, it's heavy. I mean, it's a giant clutch. It's not off your Honda or something. So anyway, these guys were pretty good. They got it fixed, got it running, think everything's fine. Now I got to go find a truck driver. And this time I started interviewing whoever it was to find out if they knew what they were doing. And there was a guy that the same trucking company had recommended who I talked to him. He knew all about 4-speed transmissions and 5-speed spicers and two-speed rear ends and things like that. He was in California at the time. He said, well, when I get back from California, I'll be glad to do it. I'm thinking, well, this is going to work out. So I kind of forgot about this for a little while, and I told the truck people that somebody's going to come and pick it up, but it's going to be 2 or 3 weeks. So and they went, that's fine, no problem. It's not really in our way. So it snowed. It didn't snow just a little bit. Well, this is the first snow that he sent me a picture of, you know, the snowplow kind of plowed things in. But I talked to the guy at the truck place, and he said, well, you know, this is New England, and it's going to clear up. We have Indian summer, and I remember this as a kid, you know. We'd have one snow, and then it'd be okay. It'd be 50, 55 degrees, and the snow would melt, and you didn't have any more until right before Christmas. Yeah, right. Unfortunately, there was, this was the forecast, and I'd once again forgotten about it. I was kind of waiting for the truck driver to call back. And they got that 30 inches of snow, and the guy calls me up, and he says, you're screwed. He said the snowplow, he sent me a picture, and I can't find the picture, and I'm sorry, but he sent me a picture where the snow had been plowed up to the cruise line sign that you saw on the thing. And he said, it's not going anywhere till the spring. So, great. You know, when he said I was, actually he didn't use the word screwed, but you get the idea. Anyway, you know, he said, it's not in our way, and we know you're a nonprofit, don't have a lot of money, so you know, we won't charge you for any of the storage or anything like that. And when it does thaw, we'll get it running again for you. You know, and we'd already put new batteries and all kinds of stuff like that in it. So we thought that, okay, that's fine. No big hurry. What are we going to do with it anyway? So it was about April before it thawed out enough to get it out. And actually, it was probably closer to May. And the guy calls me up one day and says, well, we got your truck out. I go, oh, good, that's great. I'd been hoping it'd just burn up or something. It could catch on fire, you know. When he calls up and says, you got a real problem, could we just burn it or something? It'd be a lot better. So we ended up having to put it on a truck because it wouldn't run. Well, it would run, but it would only go about 45 miles an hour. The turbocharger on the diesel engine had seized up over the winter. And these guys said, first of all, it's not the right turbocharger for that Caterpillar engine that's in the thing. And we're not a car restoration or truck restoration business. We change oil and do things like that, general maintenance. So it's something we just can't deal with. You're going to have to truck it. So we did. And if you've ever seen wide loads going down the road, or oversized loads. Now this thing on a truck is going to be 16 feet tall or so. You have to have escort vehicles. You have to have permits for each state that you go in. You do not want to try and drive it through the Lincoln Tunnel because it will not fit. Well, it might for about 10 feet or so. You just have to do a lot of planning, and this is incredibly expensive to do. We ended up having to hire a heavy-duty moving company that did, you know, giant tanks and vessels and, you know, giant compressors and all kinds of weird stuff. You see them every now and then. And we had to have an escort front and back in most states, which also costs a ton of money. Well, I'd want it too if I had to travel along with a stick sticking up out of my truck, you know, 300 feet in front of the tow vehicle. It's just yet another expense. So here it is. It finally got here by truck. And this is one of the biggest trucks I'd ever seen at the time. I have seen some bigger, but this is just the trailer part. You can see the cab over on the right next to that building, but the rear end had 4 rear axles, and the tractor had 3 rear axles on it, and it had an apartment-size sleeper on the thing. Guy had a shower and a bathroom and everything, and it was really quite nice, but it was humongous. And he somehow managed to drive this thing through downtown Kilgore, Texas, which I had to admire him for that. I've driven a bunch of trucks, and I know I would have taken out several parked cars in the process of doing this thing. But he wheeled it in, unloaded it for us. They actually started up and drove it to the back of the museum where it's at. And this is what it looked like. And in this picture, it really doesn't look that bad. It was. First of all, this had happened about July. And if you've ever been in Texas in July, you know that it's past warm. About several degrees higher than what I would call warm. And we could not get the air conditioning to work on the thing or any ventilation. And well, here's me dripping wet. You could work about 10 minutes in it and you were done. That was it. And the inside of it looked like this. It was full of junk. Larry and his friends had put all the broken equipment and weird stuff that they couldn't figure out what to do with. Let's just go put it in the truck. So we got to clean this thing out. The ceiling was falling down. The track lights were all hanging by the wires. It was great. And we couldn't even find the thermostat for the air conditioning, much less. It was somewhere, it was actually founded on the floor underneath all this crap. But this is what the back of the racks looked like. There were billions of wires in there. I mean, you couldn't even see what some of the equipment is in that right-hand rack. And none of them went to anything. So we spent a lot of time working on it, trying to get them cleared up. Meanwhile, the final blow, I guess you might call it, was when we decided to put it inside the building because it was too hot outside. And I said, well, why don't we just move it inside our building? And if somebody is offended by us working on this thing, hey, we're just part of the exhibit, Why not? Well, that's when we found out it would not go through our overhead door. It was about 6 inches too tall. Oh, we did. It was about 6 inches too tall with no air in the tires. And these tires are from the Maypop company, so when you go to air them back up, stand away. You may not want to be near it when it blows up. But we did let the air out of the tires. In fact, that's how we got it here on the truck to make better clearances. It buys about 6 inches, but we were about 6 inches off still, no matter what you did. So we had to wait till we get a contractor in to make the door bigger. That was cheap, That's almost nothing. I'm going, why the hell did we even get this thing? I mean, what are we going to do with it? Here's some more of the lovely wires and the rust. And here's me trying to pull them out. We did get it inside. And you can see we have an 18-foot ceiling, and you see it's pretty close to the 18-foot ceiling. It's really not that far away. It's maybe 5 feet of clearance or something like that. But we'll never run out of wire because we saved all the cables. This is Phil. He's one of our board members, and Phil is a guy who can fix anything. He recently resurrected a Dumont Royal Sovereign for us, and it was about a month's work, but Phil can fix anything. And he's sitting there pulling wires out. And these are wires that don't go into anything. The ceiling and the floor are both false. They're crawl spaces and raceway spaces, so they're just full of stuff. And apparently, every time they wanted to change something around, they would just run another wire, And then when they were done, they just leave it, because who wants to bother to pull it up? Besides, this has got to be in Schenectady tomorrow night, so, whatever. This is what the control room looked like. You can see it was kind of gutted. Nothing worked. Nothing would fire up. It was pretty lame, and I'm going, oh my God, what did we get ourselves into? Here's Phil and another board member, Tim, with the wire collection once again. This went on, we spent probably a week just ripping wires out of the thing. Here's a few of them. If you need some coax cable with BNC connectors on it, I can probably fix you up still. This is the audio console that's in it. It originally had a Neve console in it, I'm told, and that got sold to a recording studio somewhere in Connecticut, and as far as I know, still exists. This is a Yamaha PM2000, which was a pretty good console. I mean, they're even collectible these days, and it works. That's the good news. It was pretty filthy, but other than that, it was all there. And this is what the engineering area looked like, with all these blank spaces and racks and things. It was kind of sad, and we didn't know how it was supposed to be put together. We got, of course, no documentation whatsoever. You know, have you ever done that with the TV or whatever? You're just kind of on your own to try and figure it out. Just a little bit more of the rack room. But this is what it looks like today. Things have changed. They've come around, and now I'm glad we've got it. In fact, ESPN even came by and shot video in it. They had some kind of anniversary video they did just a couple of 3 weeks ago. I never got around to finding it. I looked through the 17 ESPN channels that I get in my house that I never watch, and I couldn't find it. But maybe it'll show up on YouTube or something like that. But it's now inside the building, and it's become quite an attraction. And it's a little better. This is what the engineering area looks like. There'd be a couple engineers back here. Now they videotaped everything. ESPN was the first 24-hour TV network. Most people think CNN was, but actually it was ESPN. They beat them by a few months. And the bean counters figured out that, you know, we can rent RCA SATCOM time. 5 hours a day or 24 hours a day is about the same price. So we'll do 24 hours a day. Why not? Okay, so what are you going to put on it? How many ball games are there at 2:30 in the morning? Not a lot. So they videotaped it and ran it over and over again. I guess they're still doing that because they said, yeah.
I'm from Bristol, Connecticut.
Oh, you are? Then you know all about this.
They went out and taped college soccer.
Oh, yeah.
They went out anything they could find.
Anything.
Anything. High school stuff.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely correct.
They were everywhere around Connecticut. Just
Well,
fill out 24 hours.
well,
They had to do it.
we run the first half hour these days we run the first half hour of ESPN programming, their introductory thing that tells you how the satellite worked with some really crude graphics and, you know, stuff that it's almost comical now. You know, everybody looks like a 1980s porn star or something in the picture. They do. I mean,
It was a restaurant, Hamp's Restaurant, that was the building that they started in.
really?
They used all of us local TV people and stuff to fix things for them.
Well, I understand they were on an extreme budget.
They were this close to going down.
That's what I heard. And at any rate, in that inaugural show, they say, you're just going to love it, folks. This is going to be, you know, all sports all the time. You're going to think you died and went to sports heaven. That's a quote. No, really, they said that. And tonight, after this inaugural program, we are going to have not one, but two. It's a doubleheader, folks. Ladies slow pitch softball from some college in the Northeast that you've never heard of. And I mean, how riveting does it get?
One of my buddies that looked like a porn star, Brad Elkins, he drove over with his little Cadillac, and two guys they used two cameras.
Yeah.
And they went out and they did two angles, so
Yeah.
whatever they could find.
They would, if it moved, they'd do it, I think. You know, that was about the way it boiled down.
They used those pneumatics to be legal. They ran them simultaneously.
Yeah.
Because you had to be redundant.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they had was two.
That was it. Yeah, 3/4-inch machines. That's not exactly broadcast quality, but on satellite, you know, we can get away with anything. You can use a VHS camera and
So they had Hamp's
nobody cares.
Restaurant with satellite dishes.
Yeah.
That truck wasn't around yet. And
Well.
whatever they could find.
Yeah, well, it was fairly lame, I think, you
You
know.
guys are great for saving that.
Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting era in broadcast history, though. I mean, and satellite delivery was a big deal. Yeah,
It's a metropolis now.
Question for you.
sure.
The cameras outside, there was a couple different versions. I think there was one LDH-20 from Philips. There were a couple different. What cameras do you have in the truck now?
Well, actually, the ones we got are Hitachis, and I couldn't tell you the model number right offhand. There were 3 of them when we got it, but they're not original to the truck. We have some cameras plugged in just through the switcher so the switcher can work. The switcher didn't work. That was a major, got a Grass Valley 250. I think there's a picture of it in the next shot. Yeah, here's the control room. The control room's actually working. The switcher works. There's a special effects generator over there to the right. We can't find the electronics to go with it. That's just the control surface. So maybe we'll find that sometime or other. This is from the director's perspective. He sat in front of that microphone and had an intercom system. And slightly to the left is a Chiron. which really revolutionized things, having a character generator that you could do real-time scores. I mean, because they used to have, put some poor guy in a dressing room somewhere with a Vidicon camera and a bunch of black cards with white letters on it, and yeah, move the card or move the camera up, pedestal the camera up and down, but they usually were on a cheesy tripod, so that was credits. And I guess they had cards that were made up that had every possible score you could ever think of, already done, and you have to go find that, home and visitors or whatever. So when the Chiron came out and other character generators, that really changed sports broadcasting. Well, a lot of broadcasting, obviously, but that made a huge difference because you could do this in real time. But this is what it looks like now. It actually looks pretty cool. The switcher actually works. Almost everything works in it now. Like I said, almost nothing worked when we got it. So at any rate, it's just been truckloads of fun. And I don't recommend getting one. But anyway, if you got, sure.
I was just curious, you said ESPN really likes what you've done.
Yeah, they seem to, at least, and they didn't sue us over using their old logo or anything. No, we didn't ask permission. I mean, it's easier to beg forgiveness, frankly.
They weren't ESPN when they started, it was ESN.
Right, yeah, they sent, the story goes that they sent the wrong logo to the printer. And all their business cards and invoices and letterhead all came back with this other logo on it, other name. And the printer goes, they go, well, you got to redo this. The guy goes, well, we just printed what you said, what you gave us. So, yeah, we can reprint it for you, but we're going to have to charge you. And they couldn't afford it. So it became ESPN. I guess ESP was a really big deal back in the late 70s, extrasensory perception television or something. So.
It was nothing, it was in a restaurant, Hamp's restaurant.
Really?
It's still on the same site, only, 50 acres back.
Yeah, well, I know it's huge now. Of course, Disney owns it. Sure. Yeah. Go.
Chuck, do you know what the E stands for?
Entertainment.
Enterprise.
Really?
Enterprise Sports Network. Enterprise.
Gee, okay. I didn't know that. I learn something new every day because.
You gotta change your logos.
Yeah, well, they always told me it was an Entertainment and Sports Program Network is what they've eventually adopted, but Enterprise might have been it in the beginning for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, how did the merger with ABC Sports, how did that come about?
I have no idea.
I mean, ABC, because ABC would, after a number of years, started broadcasting their ABC network.
Oh, yeah.
Terrestrial network. They simply used ESPN's facilities and broadcast on the ABC television network to the ABC affiliates. But is there some cross ownership or is it just?
Well, there is now. Disney owns both. Disney owns everything. The mouse has his hand out, so. I do know that they would, they had no problem with renting this thing out to anybody because they needed money. I'm going to go back here, and you'll see there's Ronald Reagan on that monitor up in the upper left-hand corner, and that's because this truck was used to televise his first inauguration. And somewhere we've got a picture of this thing sitting in front of the Capitol steps, and it was the pool feed for everyone. Yeah, back there.
I had not heard till today about anything like entertainment as far as the E being tacked on. But there's a reason why it was not called SPN.
Oh?
Maybe nobody knows. There was an SPN at the time.
Well, that could very well be, yeah.
Satellite Programming Network existed first. It was out of business by the mid-'80s, but
Yeah, well, you get into the problem. It's kind of like how Philips couldn't market anything under their name because it was too close to Philco in the U.S., so that's why you got Norelco cameras here and Philips cameras somewhere else.
Talk about Sports Network Incorporated. Let's see, the name of the firm, that's right. They would carry horse races and.
no, Satellite Programming Network.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, they may have asked.
So what did the E stand for at the beginning?
Howard Hughes started the Sports Network, body of the Sports Network Incorporated back in the late '60s, so it might have been a derivative from that.
Well, I know there were all kinds of networks that were like horse racing, things like that was a big deal, but it was, as far as I know, they weren't done by satellite because there weren't any back then. But, yeah.
You said that Compact Video built this?
Yes, they did.
Well, that's why RTS Intercom is.
That's what, yeah, because they were, yeah, they owned it. Actually, who is it? The Osmond family, Donnie and Marie, they owned it all.
Well, somebody else owned it before them.
Well, yeah, but they owned it at one time. The Osmond family owned both Compact Video and and the Intercom company too. And that's why it's all RTS stuff, because it was all kind of in-house. It's got a lot of RTS in it. Some of it works.
So, a question for you: how bad was the chassis? Have you had to do anything for the rust and any metal?
We haven't had to replace any metal. Well, we have a little bit, Bondo. This isn't going anywhere, so I'm not real worried about 2.5 inches of Bondo falling out down the street. Well, rust never sleeps, like I said earlier, and actually I was looking at it, we had to move a bunch of cameras that were behind it the other day, and I'm going, oh, it's time to go play body shop repairman here. Hopefully we can arrest it enough. There's a wonderful product you can buy. It's mostly used by antique auto people called POR 15, P-O-R 15. Paint on rust is what it stands for, and it really does stop the rust. It encapsulates it. It is nasty stuff. You do not want to get it on yourself, because the only way it's going to come off is wear it off.
Or amputation.
Well, yeah, you could have your hand cut off or something, but I don't think that would be too practical. But the POR 15 we've used on some places, and it seems to have actually worked pretty well, and I've used it on some other cars. I guess the reason that I got involved with this, or even got hooked on it, is because I do play with old cars, or at least I did until this TV thing kind of eclipsed it. But we have the Dumont Telecruiser. I don't know if you guys know about that or not, but that's the oldest restored TV mobile unit anywhere. It's, the one here at ETF is unrestored and is oldest probably that is still existing. But the Telecruiser has been restored, and I restored it. It took about 10 years to do it. I have no idea how much it cost to do it. I have a file folder full of receipts that I've never wanted to add up. But it was used during the Kennedy assassination coverage. It's serial number 101, and it makes us kind of a magnet for Dumont things, which ought to be a pretty good segue into our next program, because we're going to talk about Dumont stuff, unless somebody's got more.
What was the total cost of the move?
The total cost of?
To get the truck to your facility?
I think we ended up spending about $20,000. Yeah, it was pretty serious. With all the screwing around, with all the missteps, and the new clutch, and the new clutch was about $2,500 as I recall. And messing around with the various things that went wrong, and fixing it, getting the fuel tanks taken off, and getting a new radiator and new batteries. Batteries for this thing are really expensive, and I have no idea what we have in it now. I don't handle the finances of the museum. We have a secretary treasurer who does that, and I just don't want to know what the answer is. I just ignore it and go on. And as long as we got checks, we must be able to write them. So.
Can I talk to you afterwards? I may have some documentation on.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, we'd love to. And by the way, I got some brochures down here, and I got some cards if you want to find out how to find me. Oops. Well, that's kind of interesting. Be careful what button you lean on here.
Chuck, is that currently drivable?
Well, yeah, it will drive. Yeah, you can drive it. It's not fun to drive. Getting it in and out of our building, we refuse to take it out of our. It happens to be in an area that we use for events, and we get people who every now and then say, "Well, we'd like to have 10 more tables, and can you take that nasty truck out of here?" And I go, "No, sorry." We'd have to move so much stuff just to get it out that I'm not interested. It's not worth it for a $600 turkey dinner or something. So anyway, I hope you have had some fun hearing somebody else's missteps, and now you know that when you get into a restoration project and it doesn't seem to be going quite the way you wanted it to, that you have company. And we'll turn it over to Mike here. We'll go. This is the fun part of moving computers here, so we'll do that. And
Next up, we have Mike Molnar.
Oh, okay, I'm not using this one, I'm using the headset one.
yeah, okay. Well, I'll turn this one off.
Yep.
If I can get the switch to work.
Mike, you need to put that one on, that's for the webcast.
Yeah, that's for the video.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Flip it up, fire.
Yep.
And it's always fun at these things to watch the presenters trying to get their computers to work. That's part of the entertainment process. Turn this off. Did you want to use my clicker?